So it's Brian here, and I thought I'd do a year-end best of 2016 review of some of the books that I've read throughout the year, as well as a lot of the audiobooks. Those that know me know that I listen to quite a bit of audiobooks. So I thought I'd just share with you some of the best that I've listened to and read over the last year. So made a couple notes. Hopefully, this all kind of comes together in a streamlined way, but bear with me. So some books that I'm currently still in the works of reading. Meatonomics, really fascinating book about kind of the economics of animal foods and what it's how it's influencing buying habits and affecting the economy and everything. Really fascinating book. Highly recommend it. I'm also partway through Mushroom Hunters. Really cool book. Explores the underworld of hunting wild mushrooms. There's a lot more to know about that whole scene than you ever thought possible. Some of my top absolute must-read books from the last year include Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday, one of my favorite authors. Everything he writes is just no fluff, just pure. You gotta read it. He's also written The Obstacle is the Way, which is an audiobook I listened to about a year ago, and I highly recommend that as well. So if you haven't heard of it, Ego is the Enemy, that's one to definitely check out. I also read Russell Simmons' The Happy Vegan. Really awesome book, really simple to read, just kind of lays out some simple facts and reasons why being vegan is a great choice, how it affects the world, how it affects yourself, more from a spiritual perspective. I'd highly recommend that. Proteinaholics. I'm sure a lot of people have heard me talking about this book over the last year. Probably the biggest breakthrough book talking about nutritional science. Everything's science-based. He's got, I don't know how many, 100 pages worth of references and footnotes and everything, and just kind of blows up the whole protein myth that we need tons and tons of protein. And actually shows with quite a bit of evidence that eating too much protein is having a detrimental effect on our health as a society. So I highly recommend checking out Proteinaholics. Dr. Garth Davis is a bariatric surgeon in Austin, Texas. He has a great Facebook page where he analyzes any sort of new science that's coming out that's in the Time magazine or floating around the internet, and just looks at it with a critical lens and puts it into words that people can understand without all the minutia of what journalists put their spin on. Another amazing book that I've listened to on audio. Christy's got the hard copy version. I've listened to it probably 3 or 4 times, called Gut. Fascinating book. It's hilarious. She's got a great writing style with a lot of kind of science and research to back it all up. Just talking about your gut and your digestive system and the bacteria that helps keep you healthy and all that. Highly recommend it. Other stuff, I've got a few cookbooks. I love cookbooks, although I barely ever make any recipes straight out of them. I use them more as kind of inspiration and make up my own stuff as I go. Kind of a dependable one, Oh She Glows. Lots of really great vegan recipes in there that you can play around with, as well as the Plant Power Way. Got lots of kind of bookmarks and other recipes in there. That's Rich Rolls. Awesome book. It's more than just a cookbook. It's like a lifestyle guide. So I highly recommend either one of those two. New one that I just got, Thug Kitchen, another kind of vegan cookbook, but it takes a bit of a different approach. It's similar to the approach of John Joseph of the Cro-Mags. It's a new book I got for Christmas called Meat is for Pussies. So it's just a bit more of a guy's guy look at the plant-based lifestyle. So I can't wait to read this book and look through Thug Kitchen a little bit more thoroughly. I've also got The Happy Pear, which is an awesome cookbook. I flipped through it. It's got some really amazing recipes that I look forward to making in 2017. And a couple other books that I'm really looking forward to actually reading in the next year. How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. He's a foremost authority on all the science related to plant-based lifestyle, basically nutrition in general, and a plant-based lifestyle is kind of what he recommends. If you're interested, How Not to Die, you can check out his website, nutritionfacts.org. It's got a lot of really great, just like 3-5 minute videos, just outlining the actual science and the data and what it supports. I've also got Brendan Brazer's Whole Foods to Thrive. Can't wait to look through this, maybe gain some additional insights as far as like training for heavy duty physical endurance type events. He's the guy behind Vega, former world Ironman champion. So I still got that to read yet. I also just got for Christmas Living with a Seal by Jesse Itzler. Really amazing guy, just from what I've heard of him on the Rich Roll podcast, which if you are familiar with the Rich Roll podcast, you know a lot of the names of the authors. A lot of the books that I've read over the last year or listened to are all guests on the Rich Roll podcast, and I can't say enough about how Rich Roll, his book called Finding Ultra, which I highly recommend to anybody. It's a really amazing book about addiction and struggle, athleticism, nutrition, lifestyle, and I think anybody can get a lot out of it. I listen to his podcast every week. A lot of these authors are on the podcast, and it's a great way to kind of get a test the waters and dip your toe into whether you like what his guests are saying, and before actually investing in the book themselves. I also got Chris Hadfield's An Astronaut's Guide to Life, which I should read. I got it for Christmas a couple years ago. Just haven't got to it yet. And a few all-time favorites I haven't read in the last year, but I'd highly recommend. Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Awesome relationship book. Lays it out pretty straight. I've gained a lot of valuable insight from this book, which I have on audio as well. Listened to probably 4 or 5 times at the very least. Dean Karnazes, Ultra Marathon Man. I've got another couple books from Dean, and I look forward to getting a hold of his latest book, which is about his recreation of the actual run from Athens to Sparta, or Sparta to Athens, I forget which. Another guest on Rich Roll. He's probably more well known among the ultra running community. So highly recommend that if you want to find out more about Dean. Also, Ray Zahab, Running for My Life. Read this a couple years ago. Awesome story. Just not enough I could say about how wonderful Ray Zahab is, and the changes that he's made in his own life, and how he's affected the lives of countless others. Also thought I'd include Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela, his autobiography. I had a chance to go to South Africa this past year and learn a little bit more about his whole story, but I listened to this on audio a couple years ago, and Nelson Mandela is definitely one of my biggest role models of what I aspire to be like. And can't end without talking about the places you'll go. I didn't even notice it's the party edition that I've got. So this book, I think, says it all. You can read it in 5-10 minutes, and it's just a wonderful way of putting things in perspective and staying real, and also challenging yourself, knowing that things aren't always going to be easy, but if you put your mind to it and just keep moving forward, you're going to get there. So coming on over 11 minutes, so I think I'll wrap things up. Can't wait to dive into all this other stuff in 2017. 2016's been amazing. I hope you check out some of the recommendations that I have. I didn't even get into a lot of my audiobooks. Some of the best ones, just to wrap it up, wrote down, if you like traveling, Vagabonding, awesome book. It's short, sweet, talks about traveling cheaply, but also traveling in a meaningful way. One of my favorite authors, James Altucher, listened to Choose Yourself, which was one of his first books. I didn't find it as good as Power of No, which I had previously listened to, so I'd recommend Power of No, but Choose Yourself is good as well. To add to Ryan Holiday's Stoicism teachings, Guide to the Good Life, was an awesome audiobook that I listened to 2 or 3 times. It's all about kind of Stoic philosophy, how to live your life in a Stoic way, and leading that into meditation. Dan Harris's 10% Happier, I'd highly recommend. It's just kind of an everyday kind of look at meditation, how it can help your average Joe. I've also listened to lots of John Ronson. Really love his writing. He narrates, or he reads all of his audiobooks himself. So I've listened to them, which is about extremists, which was pretty interesting. Lost at Sea, which is a bit of an anthology of different stories he's written. The Psychopath Test, and So You've Been Publicly Shamed, which is really interesting on how we shame people in our modern culture via social media rather than the public shamings of 200-300 years ago in the town square. Some self-development books that I found really awesome. I already mentioned Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Way of the Seal, as well as Unbeatable Mind by, I think his name is Mark Devine, are not the best writing, but so much solid information about how to be tough in mind and body. He's a former Marine. He does a lot of Marine training in the U.S. and Navy SEALs, not Marines. Hence the name of the book, Way of the Seal. And I found that they've contributed a lot to my teaching as a yoga teacher and my training as a runner. 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, worth mentioning. Really interesting book. I love his concept of taking mini retirements early in life, because why would you want to work your whole career so that you could have this section of your life when you're old to do the things you want? You might as well do them now. And he offers a lot of ideas on how to go about accomplishing that. Some of them I like, some of them maybe a little more controversial. Conscious Capitalism, really great book by the one of the founders of Whole Foods. best way of doing business, in my opinion, and his, obviously. He wrote the book about it. And so more of a business spin on that one. And another interesting one called Rise of Superman, I listened to during Dirty Girls this past summer, and it's just phenomenal how we can accomplish things that were used to be impossible, and it's all through power of our mind and our mental training more than physical training is basically what the book talks about. Looking at mind and the brain and things like that. Books. Sorry, excuse my cat. Come on, Zoe. There you go. Some other awesome books that I've read or listened to called Neurotribes. It's mostly about kind of the evolution of autism. It hasn't really changed, although the diagnosis and the research related to it and how to approach autism has changed substantially over the last 60 to 80 years, even in the last 10, 20 years. So if you're interested in things like autism, I'd highly recommend Neurotribes. The Brain's Way of Healing, really awesome book that looks at kind of alternative therapies of healing brain injuries and how powerful our brain is in healing itself. Highly recommend that. And I just finished listening to Who's in Charge. It was an interesting book. It looks deep into kind of the who is actually making the decisions that we think that we're making consciously, but really a lot of the decisions that we make are made subconsciously, and then we rationalize it moments after using our kind of higher thinking power. So it's an interesting, almost more philosophical read. Couple more food books. Super Life by Darren O'Lean, a really awesome kind of go-to guide in how to go about putting the right things in your body so that you can be as healthy as possible. Blue zones, learning from different cultures, and seeing what the people who live the longest, what they're eating just naturally. It's very kind of interesting, kind of food for thought, no pun intended. And then other just interesting books that I came across, The History of the World in 6 Glasses, talks about how the human race has been changed and our civilization has been changed through beer, tea, wine, coffee, and Coca-Cola. So it goes through each one and shows the effect, as well as kind of an interesting one for those that are single and looking to attract a partner in 2017, book called Mate. It's by Tucker Max, and co-authored by Tucker Max, who's more well known for his party shenanigans and storytelling of his wild escapades. He got together with a relationship expert and wrote this book called Mate, and basically the all end all guide to attracting a partner, whether it's short-term dating or long-term partner. So I found that book extremely interesting, and for a single person, extremely helpful in kind of guiding through those sometimes confusing waters of relationships and dating and attraction and all that. So I think I'm going to end on that. I've already gone way over, almost 20 minutes, so if you've sat through the whole thing, you got lots of reading recommendations for the next year and probably several years to come. So thanks for paying attention, and thanks for checking this out, and Happy New Year. All the best in 2017.